That works. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Martha Miller with the National Security Institute, and just want to welcome all of you, and so pleased to see so many people interested in this very important topic. We are very honored today to welcome Senator Round from South Dakota. Just really briefly, he serves as chairman of the Armed Services Committee Subcommittee on Cybersecurity, and he's been a leading voice in strengthening U.S. cyber defense and integrating cyber into our broader defense strategy. He was an early champion of treating cyber as a domain of warfare equal to land, sea, air, and space. As far back as 2016, he already was seeing the importance of this issue, and he is still shaping this topic today. So I would just give him a round of applause for Senator Mike Brown.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to just kick this event off. I really appreciate the invitation to come and to offer some thoughts before you kick your panel on cyber conflict in the hybrid war era. It is truly good to see the ambassadors and staff from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and the Czech Republic, all who represent some of the staunchest and most dedicated allies of the United States. I do want to recognize and thank all of on behalf of your countries for your commitments to the NATO alliance to spend at least 2% of GDP on defense and standing alongside us for these many years. We thank you for that. I have the privilege of serving on both the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. I've been either chair or ranking Republican member of the Cybersecurity Subcommittee of the Armed Services Committee since it was created when John McCain was the chairman. So this event theme is one that is very top of mind for me. Based on the topic at hand and the goals of this event, there are two primary thoughts that I'd like to leave you with. The complexity of the current threat environment and the reality of the U.S. and our allies must be prepared for a multi-theater conflict, and the near ubiquity of cyber and what that means in the age of AI, drones, and kill webs. It is clear from the public testimony of many of our national security experts and the access to the intelligence that a growing relationship between China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea is very real. Iranian-built drones are used against Ukrainian forces and civilians. North Korean troops have fought alongside their Russian allies, and China is reaping a windfall of cheap energy from Russia that is financing Putin's war effort. Furthermore, when comparing China's manufacturing capacity advantage to ours, they look more like the U.S. versus the Axis powers than we do. Conflict, let me just put it this way. It is very clear to most observers that in the event the U.S. were to engage in a conflict with Russia or China or Iran or North Korea, we would face an additional one of these adversaries as well. Our adversaries are intelligent and they want to win. They will almost certainly wait until the U.S. is deeply invested in one theater or another before opening up a new theater or theaters. As such, it is imperative that our allies build up their own capabilities and capacity. NATO must be able to deter or defeat Russian aggression, even as the U.S. and our partners and allies deter or defeat Chinese aggression in the Western Pacific. With that said, one of the asymmetric advantages that cyber capabilities can provide is empowering a small country to punch well above their weight in the cyber domain. AI only enhances that asymmetric advantage and effectiveness. Our Estonian friends host the NATO Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence. They have been recognized for their embrace of the cyber domain at the national level and have deep experience dealing with cyber threats since the large-scale 2007 cyber attacks on Estonian critical infrastructure occurred. Our advanced weapons systems are increasingly connected to the cyber domain, along with critical infrastructure, both defense and civilian. Each of our allies represented in this room knows firsthand what Russia is going to do in the cyber domain in peacetime, let alone in the event of a conflict. The U.S. and our NATO allies must have robust lines of communications and authorities alongside the ability to surge cyber capabilities and capacity to protect one another. This is, of course, important to do prior to the outbreak of a conflict as well. We must not let Putin think that we will not respond to his aggression. Insofar as there is any daylight between cyber operations of our European allies and the U.S. Cyber Command, we need to know about it. There are always matters of classification and clearances, but we need to enhance cyber cooperation wherever we are able. A critical tool in developing exquisite offensive and defensive cyber capabilities is artificial intelligence. It's not going away. It will be here. We have to deal with it. There are a number of ways that AI is being used by our national security enterprise in the cyber domain, but it is my goal to rapidly accelerate the rate at which the Department of Defense embraces AI-enabled cyber tools. There is language in the Senate National Defense Authorization Act to achieve that goal, namely requiring U.S. Cybercom to develop a roadmap to that end. In addition to the important role AI-enabled cyber tools will provide, the substrata of data and information itself is a key terrain feature in modern conflict. Leveraging our allies to protect NATO networks and attack Russian or Chinese networks will play a central role in any potential conflict. AI-enabled software residing in the cyber domain will provide our battlefield commanders unparalleled kill webs, connecting sensors from all over the globe to shooters all over the theater. Which side is able to degrade or destroy the other side's kill web first will almost certainly emerge victorious in a modern conflict. Any war will be fought in all 5 domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyberspace. Cyberspace permeates all of the others, and any modern conflict will begin in cyberspace. Cyber is also a critical left of conflict capability. Electric grids and both military and civilian networks will be attacked in cyberspace, as we saw when Russia invaded Ukraine. Maintaining dominance in the cyber domain will both dramatically increase NATO's deterrence against Russia and China, and also mitigate any damage our near-peer adversaries can inflict through that vector. It also positions NATO to inflict severe punishment via the cyber domain should our warfighters receive the green light. In closing, cyber is an area where our nations should be increasing our collaboration and cooperation. Our European allies are very capable in the cyber domain, and it behooves the U.S. to leverage those capabilities while increasing NATO's overall cyber capacity. That is how we maintain deterrence and prevent a conflict from even happening. Let me just say, I think sometimes as we look at all the dollars that we spend, we talk about it being almost $1 trillion that we will spend in defense this year. And some people will say that that's too much. My suggestion is this: if we spend an extra 50 million or perhaps $100 million and we focus it on those key areas that can prevent a conflict in the first place, by making sure that our adversaries understand that we have the upper hand when it comes to these specific domains. That money that we spend there, some people may say we might not have ever needed it, but compared to what happens if for any reason one of our adversaries decides maybe this is the day, maybe this is the opportunity to where they decide that they're going to become an aggressor to our country or to our NATO allies. The war that we enter into at that time will be $1 trillion war, not a several $100 million war. And even more significant than that is the fact that that will now require not only the treasure that we have, but the blood as well. And I think anything that we can do to avoid that conflict in the first place by making sure that our adversaries recognize that we have the upper hand in all 5 domains is money well spent. And it will save American lives. So with that, I want to thank these folks for being here today and being a part of this event. And I cannot tell you just how critical it is that we as nations who care deeply about finding and maintaining peace to be prepared for war. And that war is one that will happen in all 5 domains, but probably beginning in the cyber domain. This is what this is all about, is making sure that the adversaries understand that we are prepared for it and that we will defeat them should they ever challenge us, specifically in the cyber domain. Thank you.
So, I think, to follow on sort of around the comments, obviously the events, not only the past several years, but the past few weeks, has underscored, the threats that we are facing today collectively as NATO allies. We might not declare ourselves at war, but others might. I think I will venture out to say flat out that Russia is waging a hybrid campaign against Europe in particular. Keeping below the threshold of open conflict, designed to coerce, distract, and divide us. Over the last 2 years, Russian-linked activity has surged. Arson and sabotage against logistics and commercial hubs, tampering with undersea cables, GPS interference, and coordinated cyber intrusions, paired with malign influence operations to sap public resilience. Just this month underscores the stakes. Just actually last week, NATO allies scrambled fighter jets to shoot down Russian drones over Polish airspace, 19 drones. Then, a few days after, Romania experienced another similar situation. German authorities seized a ship that is suspected of having Russian spy drones in the Canal of Kiel in German waters. So this is the hybrid war era. It's cumulative, has plausible deniability from the Russian side, and poses a threat to infrastructure and tests allied cohesion. We have the perfect guest today to address this very important topic. I'll start, I guess, from the right. Ambassador Creek, Estonia's ambassador to the United States, former permanent Secretary of Defense, central to Estonia's whole of society cyber resilience and NATO cyber policy making. And Ambassador Kuzma of Latvia, longtime senior foreign service leader in Europe, who has managed Latvia's diplomacy and sustained pressure on hybrid threats throughout her career. And Ambassador Varvalis from Lithuania, hope I got your name correct. And he's former deputy head of mission to NATO with deep experience on transatlantic security. And finally, but not least, Deputy Chief of Mission Jan Havranek of the Czech Republic, who not only is DCM here at the embassy, but former Czech Deputy Defense Minister, and previously on the NATO Secretary General's planning staff. So with that, I'd like to kick off this discussion with a question for each of you. How would you characterize the intensity of cyber threats that are posed by our adversaries? And any of you can jump in, or we can start from one end to the other.
I can start. Thank you very much. Well, Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your interest to this very, very important topic. We see many of you have dedicated your lunch break to come here and to listen to what we would like to convey today to you. So indeed, Baltic states and Latvia, we are already for a long time in the front line in defense, conventional but also hybrid threat. And for example, in Latvia, according to statistics, in 2024, we observed the highest threat level since the start of Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine in a cyber domain. But since we are already exposed for such a long time, we have achieved a very high level of resilience against these kind of threats nationally. And I could really assure that so far there were no long-lasting effects on Latvian society. Even we do have an experience, a very high level of those threats. And this demonstrates that Latvia's ability to resist cyber aggressors and malicious activities is successful. And we have worked a lot on having a very good governance in this respect. So now we can really also start more actively talking about more proactive approach also in cooperation with our allies, with the US, as well as within our alliance. So maybe here I will give a chance to others to say about their situation. Thank you.
That's great. Would you like to start or?
Yeah, why not? Sure. So thank you, Martha, very much for organizing this event, and thank you everyone for giving us this opportunity to discuss this very important topic. So I guess I do agree with my Latvian colleague in terms of us being in the thick of it. At the same time, what I would argue and what I would like to emphasize here is that when it comes to cyber, or when it comes to the current threat picture writ large, we all are in the thick of it, and the usual the common kind of understanding of front lines and the rear areas has kind of fused. So we see that when it comes to particularly cyber attacks, cyber probes, and attacks of more serious nature, every country in Europe, every country in the alliance actually faces the kind of threat picture that is very different that it used to be. In the sense that the number of different incidents has gone seriously up. The nature of these attacks is also more serious. At the same time, I believe the alliance has become much better in both having the proper situational awareness as well as dealing with those attacks. So just I would only agree with my Latvian colleague that thus far we've been kind of successful in avoiding any major cyber incidents involving the alliance. But this is like riding a bicycle. Yeah, we don't know what happens tomorrow. We can never stop pedaling because otherwise the adversaries get ahead of us. So, thanks.
Happy to jump in, and thank you also to the organizers for this amazing event. I've been in this town only for 1 month, so I'm glad to be in front of such a numerous audience and to start with such a topical subject of our discussion. I think the question was about the intensity, and the term is very important. If I look at the statistics for Lithuania for last year, so we had 3,874 incidents registered, cyber incidents in Lithuania, and which represented 63% more than in 2023. So we clearly see that the trend, we are on an ascending kind of path in terms of cyber attacks, and this is worrying. So this part is worrying, but there is also a reassuring part to it, which is that indeed throughout the years, as my colleagues have already mentioned, we have developed not only an awareness, but also a certain level of resilience in our countries. The structures have been established, policies have been adopted. We have centers of excellence. There is some burden sharing also among us. We can talk about it later because those centers, they are specialized on various types of hybrid threats that we face in our region. So basically, those threats, they help us also to be stronger, I would say, and it's extremely important, I think. For us to keep an edge on those threats, to make sure that the capabilities we have developed and the procedures that we have in place, they are agile, they are fast, and we can proceed. Without being too bureaucratic, with less regulation, and it works, I think, in our region. And also on the NATO level, since the Wales summit back in 2014, I think these policies have evolved. They trickled into a stream, and now I think in the alliance as such we have those policies in place. But of course it's complicated because the questions of attribution and then the political decision making on how we react to threats that are kind of short of Article 5. So those questions are very valid questions. And we as an alliance, I would say, have to find an answer to them. But again, as far as the preparation is concerned, we in the region are doing our best, our utmost, and we're ready to share those best practices with others.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta, and good afternoon, everybody. Also very glad to be joining NSI and the distinguished ambassadors here. I can only agree with what has been said. The nature of the environment, what I'm seeing and what we're seeing is that our adversaries are getting smarter, they're getting more aggressive, and the attacks they're perpetrating are much more tailored to individual countries, to individual actors. And so, yes, 100% agree with you. We're all in this together. It's not a competition who's going to be more affected by how many number of attacks. We're all seeing our piece of burden, so to say. And Czech Republic is not an exception. I mean, we've been unfortunately recipients of both China's and Russia's hybrid warfare, including in the cyberspace. Just recently this year, our authorities made the first ever public attribution, basically revealing large cyber espionage campaigns originating both in Russia and China against APT groups. And this is something that for the first time we used our internal domestic attribution mechanism. And so I agree, attribution is a very much part of this. I also want to really thank the senator for his statement and the notion of bringing the allies and partners into the mix. When these things happen, we always try to seek NATO support. We always try to see the United States government support, and we've succeeded in this. Our authorities again joined the cybersecurity advisories led by the United States on Russia and Chinese threats. This includes a collaborative effort with the U.S. agencies such as NSA, FBI, and CISA on Russian attacks against various sectors, including telecommunication infrastructure and Chinese espionage campaigns as well. And to go beyond the transatlantic realm, we also, thanks to the work of our cyber attaché in Canberra and in the region, we're closely working with Australia, Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan.
And next year we are going to be hosting the NATO Cyber and Champions Summit in Prague, which will bring together NATO and the Indo-Pacific partners. And I think it's a rotational summit, the tradition of the reason. So there's a lot that is being done, that my government is doing, that all of us are doing within NATO and on our individual level, and very happy to be part of this forum.
So, I think one of the challenges with hybrid threats and actually with cybersecurity is that the general public often, because of this hard work that's been done, often don't see what's actually going on. So I'd love to hear from anyone who would like to chime in, what you believe would be the most credible scenario that could undermine, your nation's critical functions in the next 12 months.
The thing is, like I said, it can come from anywhere and can target any sector. And but I think the most visible and tangible is whenever people are affected and whenever our citizens start dying. And that usually targets the medical sector. We've had a number of attacks on our medical infrastructure, hospitals in Europe, and obviously energy infrastructure and energy networks. So I think this is something when the population really realizes that these attacks are real. It's not some just geeky stuff that's happening out there beyond the internet. But obviously, I mean, it's hard to explain, and like other speakers have said, it's very difficult to say where the red line is, where it's really a silver line rather than a red line. Determining what constitutes an armed attack. And that's why we have the consultation mechanism in NATO. This is, allies have long time ago agreed that a cyber attack can constitute an Article 5 scenario, and it's up to the allies to say so if they come to the conclusion that Article 5 should be activated. So I think it's also good for the deterrent effect, to keep that ambiguity in the mix as well.
Yes, thank you. I would maybe add that it is very important, and we pay a lot of attention for the cooperation between the public and private sector constantly, really making sure that systems are in place also in the private sector. And this is maybe also a tool to raise awareness in a more general public that this has to be something which has to be taken seriously by whole population, whole systems function.
Yes, thank you. So your question was hypothetical, and so is my answer to that, of course. But I think if we think of let's say again hypothetical cyber incidents and what is even possible, but also where the adversary's intent may lie, then we can distinguish between the potential intent to do actual harm in terms of military systems or systems critical to our own readiness and defense, and that kind of attacks or the intent of that kind of attacks may go against the systems that most people don't know exist, or they may not see the attacks at all. Planting some kind of piece of code to some system so that it can be activated and that kind of things. However, since you refer to the general public and their sensitivities, I do agree with Jan that it's most likely, again, the intent may go against the systems that keep our society running, where our people have developed a certain amount of dependencies or reliance on certain services, be it healthcare, be it water purification, and others working. However, having said all that, I think the intent may be there, but so is our understanding that there are systems there that we need to really defend. I want to add one more point here. Since the attribution part was repeatedly mentioned before, I think particularly in the context of ever-intensifying cyber attacks and potentially in the situation of actual risk of military conflict, We really have been doing a lot of, let's say, rehearsals of attributing in the international cooperation and so on and so forth. This work has been critically important. However, we have to become better, and possibly in the case of actual ongoing crisis, we have to take more risks. After all, in order to attribute an artillery attack against a certain country, we don't need to have the passport photo of this artilleryman. We don't need to know the exact the way the commands were transferred to him, but we need to know that where did this shell come from. We need to know that the shell's caliber is right and what was the target. And I think when it comes to attribution of cyber attacks and understanding who might want to do harm to us, we also need to be more agile and be okay with the understanding that if it walks like a duck and it walks like a duck, it probably is a duck.
Yeah, so credible scenarios, I think for a kind of full-fledged, dramatic scenario, I think the answer is very clear. If you face a blackout, if there's an obstruction of critical infrastructures or really the vital functions of the state are affected, then of course we're into a scenario that would probably guide us to go to the alliance and to ask for the invocation of the Article 5. But I think probably our adversaries, they will not go as far as to really, or maybe they will not even be able to inflict such a damage that we find ourselves in those kind of dramatic scenarios, and so we might very well end up in a kind of gray zone where we have there is a certain level of nuisance that we have to deal with. Kind of hybrid nature of these attacks, and also I think one important element to mention that of course our adversaries, they have become very sophisticated in evading and making the attribution as difficult as possible. Like for example, we all remember the Skripal case when clearly there were the Russian agents who were on the ground and really working on this particular case. Now, with all those instances of arson or other attacks that happen in our countries, they work through very kind of sophisticated schemes. The perpetrators, they are very often just simple sometimes even homeless people who have nothing to do with politics, but they have been hired by some intermediaries who were in touch with other intermediaries, but you can of course climb the whole chain, and at the end of the chain, you still see that they were orchestrated by the state actors from the neighboring countries. But the picture has become way more complex and complicated. Therefore, our answer also has to be complex, and I think there is. Of course, issues like cyber forensics and cyber hygiene, they have to be part of the answer. I agree. We have to educate our private sector, and we have centers of excellence. At least in Lithuania, we have this National Center of Excellence on cyber, which really tries to work with private sector and make sure that they also have this awareness that and put in place systems that really make the life of the aggressors as difficult as possible. Yeah, so I think I'll stop here.
Yeah, just to come in on this real quick, fully agree on the private sector angle, and obviously we're here on the floor of the U.S. Congress, so I want to highlight the role of the legislators in this. We all have our own national legal systems, but it's critical that we keep our systems and our laws in place that prevent and work with that prevent these attacks and work with the companies. I mean, this is essentially what my government did in 2018 when we attributed or when we warned against companies, Chinese companies, Huawei and ZTE, that their hardware and software provides a threat to critical infrastructure. We've done the same recently against DeepSeek. So, and by the way, warning is a semi-legal instrument based in our cybersecurity law. So that's an essential part of it. And private sector those who are in charge of critical information infrastructure are subject to that law. So this is where the government and private sector meet. So obviously the United States and you here on the Capitol Hill are working on different laws and different bills, which are very much inspiring, by the way, for us in Europe. I think this is really essential in the whole hygiene system and the prevention system and deterrence system.
Well, it certainly brings to mind for those of us in the room who are following legislation here on reauthorization of certain laws that provided liability protections for companies to tell the government about cyber attacks, which is a tricky issue that we're dealing with here in the United States. So just would love to ask, thoughts about how well our, how would you grade our coordination at the NATO level, at the EU level, and coordination with particularly the United States? Are there areas that can be improved? Roadblocks, challenges? How do you see the current readiness? And how can we make it even better?
Yep. Well, as far as the regional coordination is concerned, I think we are quite well equipped, and as I mentioned in my initial remarks, we have developed a certain specialization in the region. Like we have those centers of excellence, and also, both on the EU side and NATO side. Like in Finland, Helsinki, we have a center of excellence on hybrid threats. Then, of course, there's this very important institution in Thailand, in NATO cyber security center. In Riga, we have the strategic communication center of excellence, and in Lithuania, in Vilnius, we focus on energy security threats with the NATO Center for Energy Security.
My country is in all of them.
and my country is also, I guess, in all of them. And so this is how it works in the alliance. And I just know that usually for those NATO centers of excellence, they are sometimes very, kind of specific and expert, like submarine or something. Here we have more like policy level centers that have the ambition also to contribute to the policy, the development of NATO policies in those specific areas. So and we share practices, and as my colleague said, we sit on each of these center and really try to work together. And I think very important also to say that in NATO we have also developed those policies on hybrid threats and cybersecurity since like almost a decade ago already, with the Wales Senate having a first go at cybersecurity in 2014 by adopting this policy. So, but of course, there are ways to improve, and also on the military level, there's a cyber command in the U.S. Army. We also last January in Lithuania have also our armed forces have created a cyber command, national cyber command. So I think at this military level, it's also very important that our colleagues in uniforms they also coordinate as much as possible their procedures and standards.
Yeah, just briefly, I guess the real and lasting challenge when it comes to cyber and actually other let's say not purely military domains or not purely military functions of our society is that how to make sure that as you referred to NATO, how to make sure that NATO authorities, NATO planners have all the relevant information that they might need in order to make sound decisions on military matters. Because again, so much of it goes outside of the, let's say, military domain, as Gediminas just also referred to. our nations also have the military cyber command, and then there is the civilian cyber agency. Basically, I think all of our countries have the similar kind of structure, and we know that even nationally we sometimes struggle with the information sharing and thinking of the other side that might need some information. So we've certainly gotten better. The coordination on non-military matters, or the resilience part of national defense has propped up in NATO quite considerably, but the challenge will remain for the years to come. And we also know that when it comes to some of the sensitivities regarding cyber, because they may borderline the area of intelligence, for example, there will always be a role for bilateral cooperation, as well as some small coalitions of countries sharing information on some of the more sensitive aspects of cyber defense.
Yes, thank you. Speaking about NATO Center of Excellence for Strategic Communication, at the very early stage, they started also to attach importance to artificial intelligence. It was mentioned several times here. Also, Senator said that it is not going away. So we are now working with it on one hand to see which are the challenges and risks, but also nationally we are working on the aspects of positive elements and new innovation it could bring. So we have also established the National Center of Artificial Intelligence, and we look at those issues from both aspects, and also cooperation with the US is very, very close. And just recent example on cyber security. So within a joint military exercise, Northern Strike 2025, Latvian Armed Forces Cyber Unit was integrated within the Michigan National Guard, and there was a joint exercise, Latvia, US, and United Kingdom cyber units trained to secure US critical infrastructure. So within the military exercise, of course. So also on international level for Latvia, I would like to assure you that when we are starting our term in the United Nations as non-permanent member in the Security Council from 2026 to 2027, so cybersecurity is going to be among our priorities, and we would like to raise those issues on global and global level. So we are also supporting that within our NATO alliance. There is more thinking about offensive also approaches, not only strengthening the resilience, but also thinking about offensive cyber capabilities for the future. We agree that peace through strengths is something we absolutely need, because our adversaries, they only understand strengths.
So, two big points. First, on NATO, cyber security and cyber defense have for many years been on the periphery of NATO, and over the past 10 years, as NATO started dealing with hybrid warfare, it really came to the center of attention. And it was, in fact, here last year at the Washington summit when NATO decided to establish an integrated cyber defense center, which I think will bring NATO's level of coordination to a new level, and will allow us to integrate all civilian military components, all of our national capabilities, soft power, private sector, military is one. And I really want to highlight the civil nature of all things related to cyber, which also brings me, to the fact that NATO cooperates with the European Union. The EU, unlike NATO, has a regulatory and legislative and budgetary power, and can direct the member states, as it has done, to adopt certain cyber standards. But NATO also works with OSCE in Vienna, to work on international cooperation and on international regulatory efforts and international framework, legal framework as well. And on our bilateral level, I mean, this really complements all of the international level, and that's really the bedrock of it. And we all have our piece to share. And in fact, it's happening here today because we have our cyber attachés in the room present. There are colleagues from the State Department. There are staffers from both sides of the house here. So that's really expresses the nature of the collaboration. Our military intelligence service led a very robust operation with FBI that was attributed and acknowledged quite recently in the public. So that's why I can talk about it. Information and intelligence sharing is really key in this. On the State Department level, we have our regular cyber dialogue established quite recently. And so on and so forth, I could really contribute. And one more point on the civil cooperation. When our National Cyber Information Security Agency, NUCIP, as some of you know it, organizes exercises for NATO partners and their counterparts, it's the Pentagon that participates. So I think there's a great level of bilateral and international coordination happening. And I will not say that nothing will happen, but I think we're in a very good place as an alliance, as Americans and Europeans, to be facing and hopefully preventing those attacks and even strike back if needed.
So I think with that, we're running out of time, but I would like to give an opportunity to any congressional staffers here to pose a question. So if we have any takers from this congressional staff, please raise your hand. Yes, and identify what office you're with.
I work for the Senate Budget Committee, and we got a warning just today of a sophisticated phishing attack. So lots of efforts to get people to be tricked into handing over their passwords. And so, of course, we have great protection, but someone is tricked into giving up their credentials, and that bypasses that. Are we doing enough to target against that sort of attack?
To phishing attacks.
Yeah, it's actually incredible how the social engineering, how to say, and the phishing attacks have developed over time now with the use of AI too. And but I would also say it's incredible how, I don't want to say the word dumb, but still how crazy things do happen, how people actually do give out their data, their passwords, click on things that they should never have done it. So thank you for reminding this.
Yeah,
I think
we all want to be trusting, right?
I think in this context, exercising is very important, and we sometimes run those exercises in our system. At least, like you receive some fake, phishing email, and then we see how people react on their desks, and then we draw some conclusions afterwards. We point at those who really jumped on it and those who stayed vigilant and didn't take it. So I think exercising and regularly, this is something that could prevent lots of things.
And it really goes beyond the password protection, right? And it's not, like I said, it's not some sort of a geeky stuff, but it's really for all of us, right? So I think one of the challenges that we as government face is the fact that we all tend to think, oh, let's deal the tech experts or IT experts or cyber people deal with it. But it really starts at the top of the decision-making chain and trickles down through the middle management, and doesn't have to be a government, any organization. And so, yeah.
The whole of society
Yep.
issue.
Yeah. And education, school. So.
Anyone else? Yes.
I'm a staffer, private sector, but George, Winston, public policy, grad. President Convergence sports or technology dual use. What are your thoughts on blockchain as protection at this point? I mean, we're dealing with it everywhere from finance to defense and cybersecurity. We're talking about AI and the ability actually to capture it as it's moving out and out how it's moving in. If you could just comment on that, that would be awesome.
I'm no techie, but I mean we use it in our own national cyber and digital infrastructure, the blockchain technologies for quite some time already. It further, I think, further amplifies the thinking that we have applied using the very diffused architecture of our national digital services. And I think the use of blockchain kind of carries the same point of reducing the let's say possibility of single point of failure created in the system.
I think, do you have a question?
Oh, I did, yes. Hello, Charles Marson, Senator Tim Scott's office in South Carolina, injured right now. My question is that a lot of the attacks are coming from China and Russia. My question is, from all of your perspectives, are the goals of China hacking or attacks versus Russian attacks different, or are they kind of going after the same sectors?
And according to the statistics, majority of the attacks are Russia related, but we have also maybe less, but still also those who we could relate to China as well as Belarus and North Korea. And what are the goals? So always we should look at all sectors, and it could be criminal activity, and it could be yes, an activity to destabilize directly to destabilize sectors related to the broader. Yes.
It was more of a is there a noticeable pattern in the different?
You asked about coordination, not that I know of that much. Actually, even one can say that there are instances where the same state actor has different agencies acting in an uncoordinated way in cyberspace. But I guess the set of targets are quite often similar. It's about decision making at the national and corporate level. It's about innovation, technology, and the critical infrastructure.
And I guess attribution here is really sometimes tricky to distinguish who is really behind this, whether it's Russian entity or Chinese or any other. I think I would agree. Mostly from our intelligence, we hear that it mostly comes from Russia. However, of course, China has also been active. Maybe especially in Lithuania a little bit, because we had this particular issue with the Taiwanese office being opened in Vilnius, and this which created, of course, some uproar in Beijing, and they were collecting information and looking. But this was more like an intelligent gathering, not so much trying to provoke some accident. But again, I'm improvising here also a little bit, because the attribution still remains a big issue when trying to identify the particular specific culprit.
Question, I appreciate it.
No, it's a very important question, if I may add. And in our case, I would say Russia's activities in cyberspace are much more closer to us physically and much more imminent. As you may know, my country has been one of all of our countries, staunchest supporters of Ukraine in its fight against Russia. And we have established a so-called ammunition initiative, supplying ammunition from all around the world through the Czech Republic to Ukraine. And that supply chain has been a target of cyber attacks by Russia. On the other hand, China is there in the long term, for the long term, right? So they're using different proxies. Russia is using more cyber criminals. Chinese are using both overt, open political corruption. They work with private sector. They're trying to diversify the ways of getting into the system, and they are, I wouldn't say more sophisticated than Russia, but they're certainly using slightly different means, and their timeline is really different in how they view the conflict with the West. And by the way, I invite you to read our recently published National Cybersecurity Strategy. That's pretty much in there as well. So,
That was an amazing answer.
Thank you.
Great, well, I think if we can wrap things up on that note, I think we are out of time, but want to, first of all, can we get a round of applause to our guests? And thank you all for coming. I'm sure we'll have more events coming up, and appreciate your interest and attendance.
So you in NATO.
So we have another book. Thank you. Save.